Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. My name is Richard Miller. I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host thinks I haven't noticed him slowly turning this into an ice hockey podcast, Dr. Luke Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I don't know what you're talking about, Rich. I just think we need to talk about the periods. Tactical periodization goes into 3 periods, I think, and just keep our stick on the. I don't know. I don't really understand ice hockey truly. To actually even make a half decent ice hockey podcast. Anyway. I'm doing well, Rich. How are you?
Good. Yes.
Yes. I had some fun personal news to share. I took my first driving lesson midweek and pretty much drove for 2 straight hours.
Excellent.
I'm here to decree on the podcast. Luke is going to make an announcement that basically driving is like grown-up Mario Kart, and it's quite fun. And I did often have the Mario Circuit theme in my head while I was razzing around the northeast of Calgary. And though I did miss out on some of the shortcuts, but Sajit said, "Don't worry, Luke, we'll get them next time."
Brilliant. Did you get to sort of Banana Skin 101? Any turtle shell work?
No, I'm just doing a lot of the reading about the tortoise shell legislation we have here in Alberta. So we're just doing a bunch of that right now.
I mean, they keep updating the tortoise shell, so it's quite hard to keep up with that. As an even as an experienced driver, they've added a blue one. There's a white one, I think. Sometimes it's really it's too full on. Back in my day, it was green or red.
Oh, and then you used to have balloons above your head, didn't you, Rich, as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, driving, it's all right.
Well, it's been a busy old week, so I think we should rattle along into our
breaking hoo-hoos.
There's been so much happening.
It's been incredible, considering the week before we basically said, there wasn't any breaking. Did we even play the drop last week?
We did, but it was the slimmest of pickings, it's got to be said.
We just nervously looked at each other across, visually across Skype, a little bit like Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars. You and I, Rich, just shared the same space to just give it an almighty shrug to each other about was there any Wednesday news, because there really wasn't anything like that.
Oh, and then we kissed. One of us died. Spoiler alert. That's when you say the spoiler alert, isn't it? At the end, you get straight in at the end.
Then you say to them, "And by the way, that's a spoiler."
By the way, that's a spoiler.
Rich often does that. He often just cocks down his glasses a little bit and just gives a little coy little look above and says, "And that's now ruined for you."
Oh, Different Gravy, spoiling pop culture for everyone. So we had the hugely exciting cup draw on the one show as promised, but it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't Mika Richards doing the ball fumbling. Teddy Sheringham was one of them, and I should. Oh, this is terrible. I've forgotten who the second person was. AN other footballer. That's as far as I'm going to get. I don't even know how to look up who it is, so I'm sorry.
Was it Paul Parker, perhaps?
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, we've got Man City at Hillsborough.
We have indeed. City in Cup.
We still don't know when that game's going to be yet. I suspect the all-important TV execs are probably checking or waiting to see who gets through to the next round before they pick and choose their games. Because they love to put Premier League teams playing each other on, despite the magic of the FA Cup being that everybody plays in the same competition. They really just love to show Arsenal, Newcastle, or some similar load of nonsense. So we'll see. They're definitely going to put the Liverpool kids on. If they manage to beat Shrewsbury somehow, they're going to put those Liverpool kids on the TV.
I was disappointed we didn't get the children of Liverpool. I mean, it's a pretty damn good draw. Let's kind of have a little bit of reflection here. This is this is top tier stuff. Even though Man City seems to be one of those rare breeds of Premier League teams that actually, treats the FA Cup with a modicum of respect, as opposed to Klopp, who, even though he's got a 15-point lead, whereas at the top of the division, he's a little bit anxious, so he's going to put some fucking children out.
To borrow once again from FIFA, which so closely maps real football, they could sort of leave the game running and go do something in the other room and still come back and have won the league at this stage. Liverpool, like nobody is catching them at all ever. So yeah.
So anyway, we don't get to have the joy of playing their reserves and then basically having a few players on the bench to come on and try and win it when they're under the cosh. So basically, the entire situation of them replaying a game, it's not. It's clearly the fixture. There's clearly too many fixtures. It's not the fault of them for putting out an under par piss poor side.
Exactly.
You get some lower league clodders that are going to come and stick it up you. And have 2 goals scored by a football player whose nickname is, let me check my notes, Cumdog.
Yeah, he didn't count on Cumdog, did he? Oh, he's a genius because he wears glasses. Jurgen Klopp's a genius. Wow. Didn't see old Cumdog coming, did he? Bosh, Cumdog 1-0. Boosh, Cumdog 2-0. The Cumdog Road show's on its way to Anfield.
I wanted to get off my chest because I'm so irked with some of the toss put out by Jurgen Klopp I think that the problem is also, and this is more of a conversation in general, media and sensationalism. I think when you actually listen to his interview, he's kind of a little bit like, yeah, whatever. He doesn't care. But he wasn't like damning or thumbing his nose up explicitly as much, as the media made out, from the articles. But even so, it's a real kind of disrespect of the cup competition. Anyway, Man City don't seem to have that. They seem to have professional football players who can play more than, 1 game a week. So it's going to be an incredibly tough game. I imagine we're probably going to get fairly comfortably beat at home, but it will be televised. It'll be a fun day out. Has there been some kind of overall kind of conversation on Wednesday fans on Twitter? I think there's been a bit of back and forth about people complaining that this is going to really bring some, Wednesday fans out from the rafters.
Oh, really?
I think there has been a little bit about that. I think there's a little bit of a clamour for tickets, even though, I guess we can't right now. Because you can't sell tickets because you don't know when it's going to be. But when they are going to go on sale, I think apparently it's going to be a bit of a bumper crowd. But I don't know. It's going to be a fun day out. It'll be a fun time.
I'd be very surprised if it's bumper to the point where it's selling out, because I think it's going to be a midweek game, which holds things back a little bit. But yeah, well, it's nice. I think if we manage to get a few more folks than normal, that's a nice thing to have.
Yeah, it's a bit of money in the coffers. Whether it does much in the drop of everything, but it's nice. It's nice to get to this point. It's nice to have this draw. I think it'll be good.
Money in the bank for to move swiftly along. Big marquee signings like Cameron Dawson on 4.5-year deals.
Exactly. I think a lot of people have said this, but I do want to make an allusion to, did you see the interesting video, the little interview with him, when they got it done? It was in looked like really it was an abandoned dressing room, basically.
Yes.
That was kind of set up for a teen horror film. And some really strange illumination, as though Cameron Dawson was telling like a campfire horror story. But his Who's Afraid of the Dark Stories involves a series of gruesome, not safe for work howlers. All the delicious, macabre twist is that Dawson's the one who has done them. So I'm looking forward to this new Nickelodeon kids horror show about goalkeeping howlers, all committed by Cameron Dawson.
Well, it's a treat we can all look forward to, and hopefully the sister program about the adventures of Captain Fox Morgan is going to be the next thing to get confirmed. But in addition to tying up some of those loose ends for players whose contracts run out in the summer, we did some business this week in terms of bringing new folks into the club. The first of those was confirmed on Tuesday night, very late on, I believe, when Alessio Da Cruz, that's how I'm saying it, I'm going to stick with it, a left winger / striker, joined us from Lazio. He's got
Well, it was Parma via route
Parma.
of,
Sorry,
some second tier Italian side, Serie B side that I'm really drawing a blank on. I want to say Ancoli, but maybe it sounds like I'm just making
Ascoli.
Ascoli. Okay, I sound like I'm basically just making up a really uninspired pasta name, basically, when I kind of come up with that myself. But anyway, carry on. Alessio Dal Cruz.
Da Cruz. He's so his record is this season so far is he's played 15 games, scored 5 goals, got 6 assists, and picked himself up 3 red cards, which is it's the sort of disciplinary record that really will have Sam Hutchinson looking over his shoulder, I would think. The bad boy of Hillsborough. You know, some a bit of a tussle for that name now.
So, what did you make of this transfer, Rich? Let's get into a little bit of critical analysis of this one.
I mean, honestly, it's so out of the blue. My immediate thing was, does that mean we're not getting Connor Wickham, who we'd sort of been pursuing all the way through this January transfer window, supposedly? I wondered if that meant it sort of precluded the fact that signing maybe wasn't going to happen. In now knowing that that's not the case, and having seen him play a little bit, looks like an interesting prospect. He's quick, looks fairly strong. You know, he's not going to be brushed off the ball particularly easily. Whether or not he's got goals or crosses, I don't know, but he really should have had an assist today, I feel, and it wasn't his fault that he didn't end up with one. So yeah, we'll. But it's so out of the blue.
It is. It's completely left field. It's completely out of the blue. The interesting thing is, I know there's been some discussion. You know, Monk was asked about him. I genuinely don't know where the truth lies in this one. Monk seemed to say he had him on his radar, and that through contacts. I don't know. I mean, it kind of smacks a little bit of a maybe agent connection kind of transfer. I mean, if he's decent, then what is the real issue?
Yeah.
But I think here's the thing: we'd had 2 signings under the Gary Monk era, one of which is Manuel Hidalgo, one for the future, and this one, and they don't really seem like, especially looking at the disciplinary record of Alessio. And it doesn't particularly seem like a kind of very Gary Monk signing.
Well, we don't know what that is yet, do we? I don't think.
No, I think we can probably, due to the way the team kind of sets up and the way the team applies themselves, we could probably think of some kind of characteristics of players. I don't know. It's very, very, very strange in terms of a transfer. If it works out, then that's fine. I mean, we've had a bit of our transfer record is a bit of a mixed bag overall, but maybe we've had less success as an overall percentage with players from abroad than elsewhere, than kind of on a more domestic level. Put it that way.
Maybe it's interesting. So in terms of it, the sort of signing. What Monk has talked about since he came in pretty consistently is that we have a bit of a dearth when it comes to athleticism. We lack for sort of pace and strength and drive. We've got a lot of kind of, for want of a better word, sort of soft players, folks who don't have that much about them, you know, in terms of being sort of physical specimens and athletes. I mean, Atti's tall, but he doesn't particularly play to it. You could see with Fletcher. I mean, Fletcher, I think he's got tremendous yardage out of. And I suppose that you could look at all of the signings we made as potentially being a bit of an answer to trying to add a bit more pace, a few more legs to the team, because we've talked about a lack of kind of propulsion forward, which we certainly suffer a lot of the time with Bannon and Hutchinson, and what we've seen a bit with Murphy. Unfortunately, that seems to have rubbed off a bit with Harris. It's a frustration with Reach as well. So I mean, and those 3 are arguably our best athletes, I would say. So yeah, it's an interesting one. we don't know how much we'll see of Hidalgo at all, really. He, again, from the YouTube videos, he looks more of a kind of tricky winger, but he certainly has a bit of a turn of pace. Less strong, though, I think, than De Cruz looks like a pretty strong guy. So that's a difference. He's certainly not going to get knocked off the ball easily in the way that Jordan Rhodes always is, and Winnall looks pretty lightweight as well. So he's a different presence when he's playing up top, but just because of that level of physicality to his game. And then in between times, we snuck in on Friday morning. We snuck in another young signing. So Ryan Galvin had spent a bit of time with the under-23s, and he's now joined permanently as well. Again, whether or not we actually see anything of him, we'll find out in time, but not intended to be initially, at least, a first team signing, but somebody to kind of bolster those reserves.
Though interestingly enough, I mean, you kind of look at that perspective. He's on a professional contract, and seeing mainly some of the kind of some of the thinness of the squad, and you have to pick up a couple of injuries. Then effectively, you're in a position to maybe look and give a youngster like Ozaze Ugohide a chance in the team. So maybe he's not entirely too far off, and maybe that's a similar deal with Hidalgo, possibly.
Yeah, and I do think that was one of the marked things. We'll talk about the game against Wigan. I think looking at that bench, it really was bereft of options. It was a pretty miserable bench to sort of draw from, and when we were kind of started to get that sinking feeling in the second half, there was nothing really there where we've sat and watched games and we sort of said, in hindsight you should have done X, Y, and Z, and there's a bit of that with the game. We'll get into the talking about it, but by and large, personnel wise, it was pretty sticky in terms of what you're able to do. So hopefully with these new additions, in terms of the youngsters and the senior players we've added, we're going to have a few more options to draw on when we're in those moments. So he was formerly he was at Wigan Athletic, which is interesting. It's all become a bit of an odd little circle with Wigan, because we made one of our major signings from Wigan as well. So transfer deadline day, there was a bit of talk out of nowhere, really, linking us to Josh Windass. That hadn't been one that had been bouncing around all January in the same way that Connor Wickham had, but it popped up. It was Alan Nixon, who's a bit of a regular source on Twitter, mentioned that we'd had a bid turned down, but there was maybe more to that. And that's an interesting one. So Josh Windass, how do you feel about him coming in?
It's it's a very interesting one, Josh Windass. Josh Windass, how do I feel about that one? I wonder if that's a kind of a situation where I don't know. I think looking into it from a Wigan perspective, maybe I think there might have been a bit of friction between him and Cook, possibly. Right. I don't know if that's complete conjecture or whether there is something a bit more kind of concrete in that. But I think he sounded like someone who, from a Wigan perspective, has kind of not really lived up to the hype there. Some seemed happy to see him go. Some seemed pretty upset that he'd left. I'm really wondering if this is. I really hope that this is one which we've done a good bit of scouting and we can probably get something, a deal. We found ourselves a bit of a deal with a player here who could kind of fit into our kind of ethos. I'm really hoping that he is going to be a player for us, for some player for us. I guess it's just the interesting decision. Where exactly do you think a player like that fits in within formations and the way that we can kind of set ourselves up at Wednesday?
I think by and large he's going to be. Well, he's mainly an attacking midfielder, isn't he? I think he can play. He can play sort of wing position. He can play just off the striker, and that might well be where he ends up playing. But I see him as competition for Kieran Lee's best position, maybe Luongo's best position. Neither of those two have consistently been fit enough to play the role. And when they've played, they've not always... Well, I think Luongo's consistently played well, but for him, it's certainly been his absences are the problem.
Yeah.
For Kieran Lee...
Kieran Lee. Yeah, I think we're probably going to settle on similar things here while we're both talking about Kieran Lee, and I interrupted you there, Rich. Apologise for that.
Okay.
I think with Kieran Lee, the interesting thing is he's never been he's had a bit of agility and he's been a little bit spry, but he's never been particularly quick, really. But I'm wondering whether kind of this iteration of Kieran Lee kind of coming back, it's seeming very taxing on him physically to consistently get up to the marks that I think we probably expected of him. And due to a bunch of issues, he's never really kind of been there, has he?
No.
On a consistent basis, I want to say. I think he's had moments, definitely this season. But definitely I'm wondering if you can have someone who is younger and has a touch more pace, like I'm thinking Josh Windass has, then maybe I think I kind of agree that maybe it's that kind of number 10, one in the hole kind of attacking midfielder. I think the interesting thing was when this was coming out, we didn't know. We just brought in De Cruz, who seemingly looks like a winger, but also kind of like a second striker.
Yeah.
And we didn't really know what was kind of going to come to play with Connor Wickham at the time. So it seemed a little bit like I wasn't sure this is exactly what we're after. It kind of felt like, with a lot of these options, it kind of felt we were stockpiling wingers.
Which has been a huge part of our game plan all season. We've been very reliant on our wings for our attacking play, our attacking output. And Harris has really struggled since Christmas. Murphy has had very good games, has had poorer games. Reach is in the middle of a very disappointing season for himself. So having another option or two in the area where we are, that's what most of our game is structured around, does make sense. And I think that's a nice thing, is we do have a few more options to play on the wings, even if none of them are kind of out-and-out wingers in the same way as those three are. But yeah, I just think all across the board, up top now, we've got choices that we can make, which we've not really had before. It's just been who's fit.
Maybe we can look to revolutionise a new tactic in football by having 4 wingers on the pitch at once. We can have mid wingers and late wingers.
I mean, you could argue that a lot of wing back type players aren't particularly good at defending. So, I think Reach could do a job behind a winger, potentially.
Well, I mean, we can... I really want to get into that kind of attacking formation and fluidity when we can look at, the game we played today against Millwall. We can kind of talk about that later. Should we get on... I mean, hilariously, we haven't done this in chronological order, or should we say chronological order, as we brought in Richard Miller, striker of the decade, Connor Wickham, back for a third bite of the cherry. Is that correct?
Yes, I've decided for this stint. We've called him Wigwam previously. For this stint, he's come back. He's a grown man now. The Con Man. Bring on the Con Man. That's what I've decided. We need to. That's his nickname this time round, and it's going to turn the whole season around, Luke. I mean, you're sat there thinking, oh, it's a bit mid-tabley. Well, Connor Wickham's here now, so it's all going to be great. But yes, he's joined on loan from Crystal Palace. It was strange to go through a January where we were consistently linked with a player that was getting minutes for a Premier League team. And I didn't see Crystal Palace doing any business to replace him. So that is an odd thing to have.
It was weird. I think at one point they were kind of maybe in the rumour mill running with Jared Bowen, who the whole striker who ended up at West Ham. So I think there was also some kind of damn lies and conjecture on the Twitter rumours saying at one point it looked like it was done. It was off. Not done, but I mean done off. It's off the table. Done off. Like,
Finito.
Not a done on. A damn done, off. Yes. And
Yes.
in true successful Luke joke fashion, I'm going to abandon that one as it careers off into
Fail.
a ball of fire.
Eject.
Eject.
Another
So anyway,
fine joke. So I think Wickham. What we can say from the fact that he's playing Premier League games is that presumably proves that he's in pretty good fettle fitness wise. Whether how that translates to actually playing full games and playing games Saturday, Tuesday, etc. We'll obviously find out in time. But what it absolutely means is we've replaced Fletcher, because in a lot of ways you could describe Connor Wickham as a younger model of Stephen Fletcher. 6'2", 6'3", puts himself about well, very mobile, a decent lick of pace to him, and gets a decent amount of goals as well. So I'm quite pleased as long as he doesn't immediately pull up with something awful, or we don't overwork him. I think it's about as good as we could have hoped for in our situation. And I think if somebody else one of our rivals had signed him, we'd all be thinking that's a pretty good bit of business that they'd done.
I think so as well. I guess there was some interesting kind of rumours and conjectures about how this was all going to play out and pan out, as we're all fervently refreshing our Twitter pages and any sources of information we could get at all as this was going on. And at one point it looked like, I think Cardiff were kind of in the sniffing for Connor Wickham as well.
Yeah, that was definitely strongly rumoured. And similarly, there was a lot of talk about Wigan being interested in Rhodes going in the other direction when we picked up Windy Ass. I just want to run through my notes from the Wigan game. I thought so. First half, I thought we actually played pretty well, and in particular, I thought Ati Nuyu had probably one of his better starts for us in a long time. Maybe his best start this season. Oh well, I suppose the Borough game beats that. But maybe outside of that, I thought he was doing a great job. That was converse to Winnall, who I think lost possession every single time he had it. That sounds like a sort of hyperbole exaggeration, but it wasn't. I genuinely, literally think he lost the ball every time he had the ball. Murphy was having a good first half as well. He seemed to be all over his fullback and seemed to be able to beat him for pace and also trick him. He was sort of making things happen. And we also had this bizarre incident. The 18th minute, there was sort of a 5-6 minute delay because there was the ref had spotted that the netting had come away from the corner of the goal. So we had sort of 5 or 6 minutes of firstly Cameron Dawson pushing the ball into this hole to see whether it was big enough for the ball to go through. And Dawson, granted, is a tall chap and was able to do it. Then the little referee decided to try and see if he could shove the ball through the hole and was not tall enough to do it, but just kept trying again and again. Really strange. And then eventually two little portly chaps making in no rush at all to let the football game happen any quicker, brought themselves along and brought their step ladders from the back garden or from the garage and popped up and hooked the netting back on. But it was very weird. But we obviously scored, and it was a great header from Murphy to get that goal. And I thought Moore and Morsey looked very good for them. I think we picked out Morsey last time we played them, but Kiefer Moore he's in that mould of the of the Fletcher player that we are lacking at the moment. So far so good at half time. The only problem was it all went terribly wrong afterwards, and pretty soon afterwards. Did you manage to sort of follow it at all? Have you seen the highlights at all?
Oh, I did see the goals. That was about as much as I saw. I was busy working at the time. It didn't sound like, I think I was listening to it. I really have a real difficult time listening to football matches through commentaries because it's something that's very heart attack inducing. Surprised there's not been a kind of outbreak of people passing away from listening to Andy Giddings or whoever it is just cream themselves all over when the opposition team just gets anywhere near the goal mouth, the Wednesday goal mouth. So I did listen. It didn't sound like a particularly fun endeavour. I think I even missed out on the goal, so I didn't get to hear Wednesday at their kind of peak in this one. So
Yeah.
kind of looking back on the goals, did you think that they were kind of the first one? I'd probably say for both of them. Shades of offside about both of the goals?
Definitely not the second one. I don't think the second one definitely wasn't off. I wasn't sure about the first one, and there never seemed to be a good angle that came up. But the big thing that happened in the game was that Fox went off, and we changed the whole back four around because Fox went off. So Odebajo went to right back. Left back, Iorfa went to right back, and then Tom Lees came on. And Kiefer Moore, who had looked good but been very ineffective, all of a sudden it was his game because Tom Lees is terrible at playing against big, quick guys. And funnily enough, Kiefer Moore, who Iorfa handled brilliantly in the first half, suddenly he's popping up. He should have had a goal before his goal. He should have had a goal after his goal. It was a baffling substitution to change everybody around in the back four. And it's worrying to me that they don't notice how poor Tom Lees is at dealing with, in particular, that sort of front man. Really, really odd. And then obviously they came out and had the searing, throwing the team under the bus talk. But I did think that was a huge change to make. It made us considerably weaker, and it didn't need to be so kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. But basically, yeah, Kiefer Moore, it was just a ball poked through. Burner looked like he'd completely gone to sleep and rolled around trying to get a foul whilst Kiefer Moore popped the ball in for their first goal. We then, in very short order, took Sam Winall off and brought on Jordan Rhodes, and another sub that made us weaker because Rhodes did nothing, absolutely nothing. I can't remember him touching the ball. So yeah, we got worse again, and we're both attested to being fans of Adam Reach, but he was awful when he came on as well. So we took Kadeem Harris off, and Harris is not in good form right now. It's a shame. I don't know what's dropped off for him, but he's been in poor form pretty much since the Christmas period. But what he does is work really hard, and his endeavour was sorely missed when Adam Reach came on and did nothing. He was terrible, Adam Reach, when he came on. So that made us worse, and it was just from that point on, basically, we'd made all of our subs with 20 minutes left to go, and I was just sat watching the game waiting for them to score the winner. It was just a matter of time, and they had chance after chance. Dawson did a pretty decent job sort of pushing them back. They did a pretty decent job of missing great chances, and then Odebajo, who'd been pretty good all game, to be fair to him, his clearance was closed down. It meant it dropped in a very favourable area for Wigan, and just a succession of headers, really, wasn't it? There was one flicked header, and then their player just ran through. Jamal Lowe ran straight clean through on goal and scored again. And I don't know whose man he was. I think he might have been Tom Lees' man, but when you watch the highlights back, Lees and Burner just looked at him. Neither of them moved to stop him at all, and he just nodded it over Dawson's head. I don't think Dawson could have done anything with it. He came out to try and put the pressure on, and was lobbed effectively for the goal with the header. So a really, really disappointing second half performance, particularly when we'd been, I'd say, pretty good first half. They were pressing, but we managed to just work our way around their press again and again in the first half. And then it all went terribly wrong second half. And who knows how long Fox is out for. I do wonder whether the signing of the young left back might be a nod to the fact that maybe Fox is out for a little while. But yeah, did you have any other feelings based on the...
No, I just was pretty darn disappointed, I'll be honest.
There's also the fitness factor, because this was we obviously played Friday and Tuesday, and Wigan had a weekend off. So that sort of freshness probably helped them in the second half. But that's where you look at the subs that weren't used. So I'm criticising every one of the substitutions we made because each of them made the team on the pitch worse. But the folks who didn't come on, Joe Wildsmith, well, that was never going to happen. Alex Hunt, what a game to throw him into at any stage during that second half. Urugide, maybe. That would have meant just one swap of the back four. You bring Odebajo to left back, you put Urugide right back. Arguably that's a better change than bringing in Tom Lees and moving everybody around from their position. And then the only other one was Borokov, and he seems to just have been warming the bench. Borokov, he's not been warming up or got close to coming on, even though he's been on the bench for a couple of games. So that's where I think we needed the transfer window that we've had, because you look at that bench and it's not great, despite the fact we've got a decent sized squad. You pick up a couple of injuries and you're in the situation we're in, and there's not many options.
Yeah. So, I feel that maybe that's kind of the link in the bridge to talk about today's game, because I think I really want to kind of press upon. I think we've kind of talked about this before. I think is this the second or third iteration we've had as Bannon and Joey Pelopessi in that centre mid pairing in 4-4-2, and I don't know. I was really hoping it'd be crazy enough to work, but then the problem is right now, I think as you said, look, we've really got 5 players to compete for 2 positions. That should be more than enough in terms of numbers. But now we're in a situation where Lee's picked up an injury, Luongo's got something that's going to keep him out for a bit, and Hutchinson's been battling through some of the pain and has had picked up another knock himself. So suddenly now we're just down to our only 2 options, which is Barry Bannon and Joey Pelopessi. Unless we want to do you want to kind of blood and bring in Alex Hunt? And you probably don't at this point. Alex Hunt's probably a player who's probably going to look to, at a long term, if he kicks on and develops, be a player in the kind of Barry Bannon mold. So we're not really going to we're not going to drop Bannon. Why would you ever do something as stupid as that? And I don't think you can play Bannon and Hunt together.
No.
So then the only thing it points to is Joey Pelopessi. So we've kind of been stuck with this as a centre mid pairing, and it's worrisome. It's worryingly bad as a setup right now.
Yeah. I do think that's a feature of the last 3 league games have been also particularly bad Bannon performances. I know it's not often we're in a position to say that, and you'd really struggle to find someone who is more fond of Barry Bannon than myself. But the Blackburn game, he gave the ball away too often and defensively didn't do enough or wasn't effective enough. Same thing today, and to an extent the same thing second half against Wigan. We can't have anybody, but particularly Bannon, handing possession to the opposition under no pressure. It's those passes that he's missing and making mistakes with, and it's putting the rest of the team under pressure. And on top of that, it's set pieces as well. His set pieces today, woeful, really, really painfully bad. And once Murphy went off, there was no other option. I don't know what's up with Bannon. Maybe it's just the lack of competition. Maybe he's a bit worn down by things. Because, as you say, you've got to play him. Why wouldn't you play him? But well, go on. Sorry.
Well, I was just wondering, just to kind of look from the outset, just to kind of start the analysis of this game, I often, let's do that. As you know, let's look at the lineup, a little bit of lineup probing. Let's give it a prod with a stick. Let's give this
Luke's lineup probe.
Let us, me and you, Rich, as young 8-year-old boys, go out into the woods and prod this cadaver of a dead Wednesday 11 cadaver. Let's poke it with a stick a few times. And so I was glad to see Palmer back. I'm glad that he's been a player we've missed quite a bit. I don't think fullbacks have been too terrible. I mean, we've also been blessed with a little bit of a spate of Hirohide doing very well. So it's not, right back hasn't been completely terrible. I think some real lovely damning praise for myself there. But I'm still happy to see Palmer back. I wondered how much he'd be a player, a bit of steadiness on that right kind of defensive flank. That'd be good to kind of see him back. Could you imagine there'd be a day previously when we said we've missed? Thank goodness Liam Palmer's back at right back. It's just an incredible turnaround in kind of modern Sheffield Wednesday history. And then the interesting thing was that, so you would have looked at the lineup and you probably would have thought that Odebaggio would have played right back and Liam Palmer would have played left back.
Because Palmer, that's how they started the season, was the other way around.
Exactly. And, bizarrely, actually, it was the opposite to that.
And I thought it worked pretty well.
Yeah. No, we can.
Possibly Odebaggio's best game in a Wednesday shirt today.
He was very, very good today. But again, looking forward and getting up that, it became very strange. Like, not a roads to be seen for miles.
No, dropped.
Forestieri's back. He's back on the bench alongside Alessio de Cruz.
De Cruz.
De Cruz. On the bench for a bit of attacking pep alongside Winall. And then who else we got? We got Tom Lees, Wildsmith, and to round out the picture, it is, who is it now? Who is it? Is that it?
We got Hunt, Wildsmith, Winall, Lees, Uragide, Crush, and Forestieri are on the bench.
There we go. Okay, so I think we've covered it all. Yeah. So I guess it was kind of interesting looking at, but then I was like, it took me a long time to kind of get my head round. I was like, oh, Winall's on the bench, there's no Rhodes. Oh, so maybe it's Adam Reach alongside up top. And then I was kind of weirdly excited, despite maybe some kind of questioning kind of history and results. I was interested to see how basically all our free wing options on the pitch at the same time. That feels like a new one. I mean, I know we're grasping at so many straws with these formations and some of the player selections. I just felt with Reach up top, haven't we been here before? We've done this. It doesn't work. We have.
He looks bright for 5 minutes and then disappears. He doesn't know what to do in the position. It's frustrating. And you're right. We've got 3 players there that, to an extent, are interchangeable. Would have been nice to see some movement.
Yes, that is something else. I mean, I almost would have liked to thought, how about maybe we see Harris in the hole?
Yeah.
Because I'd rather have Murphy on the right wing. And I'd probably say over a recent kind of spell of games, I'd probably say Reach has been better on the left than Harris.
Yeah.
Harris is not having a particularly great run of form. So, I don't know, maybe just it might give a bit of freshness to Harris if just to give something different to his game. If he tried that role. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I genuinely feel there's so much of this. Right now, we've got so many players out of form. We've got injuries. We're just grasping at straws before we could get these players across the line. Of which, we signed them late night. If we signed them before 12, they could have been, in and around the squad picture.
I know, but that never happens, does it?
That never happens, and also I think it's way too soon. I think we need Wickham with us a little bit before we can give it a starting berth. And I'm not entirely sure what the kind of background history of everyone's favourite Trumpy bum.
Josh Windy ass. Yeah, well, I think that's one of the nice things. This is sort of putting the cart before the horse a little bit, but one of the nice things is we've got a week now till the next game. So all of those new players, there's some time to kind of bed them in and have some get through some training, try some things out. So that's a nice position to be in. It doesn't help us for today, but I do think the mood was lifted around Hillsborough probably because of those signings. There was a couple of rounds of Connor Wickham's song, which I can't quite remember from last time round, but he's got one apparently. So I do think it was obviously lovely to have that a bit of a spring to our step. And I also feel that was the crowd kind of showing that we're sort of on Monk's side in this back and forth with the players, however sort of real or imagined that is. I think there's a fair few folks in this squad that the majority of fans, they're not going to be crying a river when a few of these people move on to their next step on their footballing journey, so that was a nice thing ahead of kickoff and early in the first half. There was just a bit more brightness to the crowd than there has been in the last few games, and certainly probably more than the team deserved after their last 3 or 4 performances at home. So that was a bit of a boost. So getting into the game, just wasn't very much that happened.
Yeah. Just as a kind of final conclusive sentence, just from my notes, I just want to draw a reference to looking at the formation. I, Lou Gledall, a 36-year-old male who's trying to muster any kind of real positivity and faith in Sheffield Wednesday for the sake of myself and my own personal health, and also for the fact that me and you, Rich, do this podcast. And I'm trying to make it kind of interesting, and I'm trying to be positive and trying to be upbeat. But the words I wrote is a 7-word sentence, which goes along the lines of, God, I hope this is any good.
Well, the other thing in terms of that swapping and changing, and
I'm waiting for it, Rich.
Wanting to see Harris move, wanting to see Harris try something else or move to the middle. The other thing was, this is the first, when we played Millwall at the Den. That's the first time we'd seen Harris have a bad game. And it was because Romeo matched him. He's as good of an athlete as Harris is. And he doesn't come up against that very often. But when he does, he gets very kind of downhearted. He's a man who naturally looks a bit glum. There's a thing at the kind of resting bitch face. People talk about that, like somebody's got a resting bitch face. Harris has a resting Mardy face. He looks upset. The world has played a trick on Kadeem Harris, and he's caught onto it, and he's not happy. That's what his face is saying at all times. All right, but when he comes up against like an equal athlete like Romeo, he's miserable. He's huffy. He's dejected. He tries less. He tries less things. So again, it would have been nice to just go, okay, so Romeo, he can cope with the pace of Harris, but what does he do against the sort of quality of ball that Reach can play? Can he block an early cross? Can he, those sort of things would have been nice to just try it out. It just never happened. It's
interesting that you mentioned, this sodden look on Calvin Harris's face.
Yeah.
And I do wonder a lot about the fact that, like, it's a difficult kind of situation right now. It's a very kind of glum winter we're in. I wonder about, there's this kind of very much difficult kind of hard work ethic kind of mentality of kind of digging ourselves out of what we're in right now.
Yes.
I feel like these players need a bit of a lift. It's looking like a very kind of despondent looking, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'd bring them some chips for the training ground. Maybe we could put on.
What a turnabout!
I've got a good idea, Rich.
Coach Luke is bringing in the chips.
Last night I went with my girlfriend to her work had a post-delayed Christmas bowling party, and we had a few pop and crisps there, and maybe that's it. We need to put a pop and crisp party for the lads. Well, maybe this is the only way we can get through to these despondent children. That they just need something to give them a little cheeky little grin on their faces. It just seems on a more serious note, it does seem a very
bit of a miserable time.
A bit of a miserable cast of characters. You kind of mentioned Bannon. Bannon seems a little bit more kind of whiny than usual,
Yeah. No, definitely. But then maybe that lift will come in the new players. So I don't know if you've got particular notes from the first half. I
I have
remember
quite a few.
Odebajo. I remember a chance for Odebajo that he sort of hit an okay-ish shot, but missed the target with down low to the keeper's right. Outside of that, I don't think there was a shot on target until about the 60th minute or so. But please take us through your observations from the first half.
I think the afternoon, the pace for it was really set with a first-minute foul from Joey Pelopessi. And it seems to be the great theme behind this game, from what I saw a lot of, was basically, it was a series of Dawson just kicking to Millwall, basically. That was the theme of the first half. It was basically, seemingly because Nuyu isn't Fletcher, and also seemingly because Dawson's kicking isn't that fantastic as well.
Also, sorry, they are massive. Millwall's two centre-backs are, I don't use this word lightly, Luke, they're jahonging.
Could you explain to me what that word means then to the audience?
A layperson may use the word mahusive, but I use the word jahonging, which is the technical term for, just a massive unit. Hutchinson, Cooper, and Wallace, just whopping great guys. And their goalkeeper's huge as well. Absolutely unnecessarily enormous is Bielakowski. Huge. And then up front, Smith is massive as well. And then they brought on Budvarsson, and he's even bigger.
Did you see the gangly nature of Jake Cooper at the back as well?
Yeah, Cooper and Hutchinson. I don't think Fletch would have got much joy out of them, the two of them. It's amazing that once again, because this was one of the real. This is one of the real, like, Bullen is not for this job games. If you remember, early in the season, we had a complete capitulation away at Millwall. And Fletcher couldn't get any joy out of that pair of centre-backs. Heaven help Nuyu, because he was never going to get anything going. Never, ever. And also, the referee had this fun thing where if you were tall, you weren't allowed to win any fouls. So thankfully, but largely that played in our favour because they had more big boys than we did. But it meant that Nuyu was in line for all sorts of treatment in terms of people climbing over the top of him, holding on to him, pulling his shirt, and never getting any fouls ever.
I often wondered, looking at a lot of the Millwall players, to talk about their height, I could probably call them the Moai, which are the monolithic human figures carved by the Rapa Nui people on Easter Island in eastern Polynesia between the years 1250 and 1500, especially looking at Jed Wallace, who's a very hard-faced man. So there we go. I've just needed to, if everyone's playing different gravy bingo at home, Luke has said a nasty thing about one of the appearance of an opposition player. So I just wanted to get that in there.
But he did it with historical context, so it was classy.
It was a different gravy of bullying people purely based on their looks. It's like I would never knowingly fat shame anybody in my life or friends, but if they're football players, then that means I'm purely the fair game. So shout out to Elias Chair from last week, who I called him a chunky lad. Anyway, moving on. Looking at, like, it was basically, and that was a really funny thing you mentioned, like, they've got these giants in the team. Yet, hilariously, we're just going long. They're playing more football than we are.
Constantly going long.
And I think any time, I remember one point, the 16th minute, I do want to just really point my grotty finger in the direction of Joey Pelopessi. On the 16-minute mark, he just ploughed it straight into a Millwall player. Under no duress or any stress. He just absolutely stroked it into a Millwall player. And other themes from the first half, I kind of want to look at. It was okay. Let me try and let's. How can I think about this? So Adam Reach did an absolute brilliant minute, about the 17th minute, did a brilliant bit of cover to go through a very dangerous through ball through the middle.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Which was a great kind of interception. And I just want to kind of bring up, especially as, Adam Reach now is, he's not the Bernie Sanders. He's gone towards a more kind of Hillary Clinton in that he's become more centrist, Rich.
Yes.
And
He believes in the
And
third way.
I also want to ask, what position should he be playing? I know you can say it wasn't particularly working up front, and I can support that. But the real positive I will say about Adam Reach was he was everywhere on the park. He was careering around like it. But that was the thing. He was doing a better Joey Pelopessi role than Joey Pelopessi.
I think, well, that was a highlight. That Reach bit of defending was great. I've got to say, Pelupessi did one of the best professional fouls.
That was good.
That was a real. It was well timed. He didn't take a card for it. It shows you the caliber of football that was on display in the first half. That was one of the better moments. Was Pelupessi's professional foul on the halfway line.
Oh, I don't know. So I guess the thing I'm kind of looking back was just in that first half. I mean, we talk about this a lot. We talk about Monk setting up the team in a very kind of solid spine defensive shape to deal with these teams, and it's a very kind of ponderous afternoon of chess. Really, it's a very conservative setup for the first half of the game before then we start to look to expand. And it looks in two ways like quite interesting. I guess there's two ways you could look at this. You could probably say that this is how Monk sets a team up, and I think that's how things go. But maybe on a more critical side, you could be like, it kind of looks like they're never really being set up properly to play football from the off, really.
Yeah, he does to kind of parachute in and save the day second half, doesn't he?
He does. And then some of my, I don't know, it was I've had some real difficulty with some of these performances. I think the worst one was definitely at home to Hull. In terms of, I said I've used that kind of chess analogy. It's and then some of my comments here, I just want to say it's long ball croquet. Another one I said it was tedious long bowling shite, to be a little bit crass there. And it's to work another analogy, Rich. I want the play at Hillsborough to be like a G6, not like a bishop to G6. You know what I mean?
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
So these like ponderous diagonal kind of long balls that we're hoping to kind of get something out of. And it's just, it's not, this is the kind of football we play under kind of Gary Monk, but I wish there was a bit more impetus in the attacking third. And definitely for the first half, there was none of that today. And it was just dour, just watching us hit it long, hoping New does something, but then really just giving the ball back to Millwall, who play it around a bit and try and get it forward at us.
The few times we didn't do that were the highlights, really, weren't they? I mean, the ball where Murphy sort of played that inside out pass with the outside of his foot out to Harris, who then played in Odebajo for that shot that I talked about. That was one of the better moments. And then
that was good.
And then the
41 minute mark, I can talk about this in length because my notes.
Yeah, please.
That's
kind of it, isn't it?
I'll steal the ball off you here, Rich, to surge forward.
Please do.
What a move. That was such a brilliant pass from Odebajo. Barry Bannon did this lovely dummy to just completely sell it in. Harris ran onto it, this lovely first-time crossover. And then Reach, I don't know, should he have done better when he glanced ahead of wide?
It was a tricky angle, and I thought Reach did okay. What I think we were most angry about, and maybe slightly unfairly on seeing the highlights, I sit in the cop. We were just like, why on earth is Murphy not flinging himself at that ball? But he was quite far away, to be fair. Looking at the highlights, he was probably a bit further away than it seemed at the time. So I might be inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. It's strange with he's had a few very close run headers. Has Adam Reach? You know, he's hit the post, hasn't he? And he had another couple of decent. He's weirdly quite good with his head. Which just is quite unexpected from a kind of foppish winger that he cuts the figure of 9/10 of the time.
I really want to say I think the star of the first half for me was Moses Odebajo. I think he was very, very good.
Mm.
I thought it was surprising, and it's not something you automatically look for in someone who's a fullback, but he was very comfortable on the ball.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree, and it's interesting that both him and Palmer seem to be more comfortable bringing the ball forward from the left back position than the right back position. When for both of them, it's their first choice place to play is right back. Interesting. So no subs at half time. No real sort of huge changes. But Wednesday, I would say, were much brighter second half.
We did. We came out to be a lot more kind of expansive and attacking in the second half. Seemed to be a lot more verve and drive to proceedings. So again, it kind of goes into that narrative of other players. Are they being told to be like that, or are they just starting badly? Because we do seem to come out and seem to be a bit more renewed in the second half. It seems to be a bit of a common theme, really.
Yeah, I suspect it's adjustments. I think particularly we got a much better handle on Matt Smith second half. Like we clearly been told to double up on him, which had never happened during the first half. So, and I think that was a big part in him going off in the 60th minute, was the fact that he just kind of he just couldn't get anything going, which was nice to see. I mean, he's a guy who has caused us headaches again and again for all his being, just being a big lump.
So what did you, Rich, think of I guess there wasn't really much kind of game that was played. I did love I don't know if it was kind of chronologically, we can just quickly talk about, I love the defensive work by Julian Berner to be fouled and dive and head it out of the way.
Oh, that was so good.
That was a real fantastic. That was a highlight of a pretty dour afternoon, I'd say. That was really something else. Some real kind of German warrior kind of commitment from Julian Berner.
Actually, I mean, weirdly, I think we were, I would say, probably marginally the better team second half, although we didn't create anything very much. But almost all of the highlights were great bits of defending. So there was the Julian Berner sort of diving header out of play / buying a foul, etc. There was Iorfa's tremendous tackle on Bodvarsson, which was so heart in mouth because it's a red card or it's a great tackle, and thankfully, as is often the case with Iorfa, it was a tremendous tackle. And then there was a great bit of defending from Odebajo. They had that effort that went past Dawson, and Odebajo, he was he was bothered by his groin after making the block. So I can only imagine that he sort of nodded it off the line with his chap. I can only imagine that's what happened.
So the bit in the narrative I was going to kind of go with was we talked on a kind of step and a focus on the defensive work. I guess it's interesting, like the 55-minute mark, that's when Wednesday made the first substitution of the game. In that one, Kadeem Harris came off and Fernando Forestieri came on.
Yes.
And I was intrigued. It was a very early substitution for Gary Monk. I don't know. I didn't see. I think collectively we were a bit. Our attacking teeth were a little bit missing in this game.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting was when Forestieri came on, he played left wing. Adam Reach is there, and he stayed up playing alongside Nuhiu, and Forestieri went to the left wing, which was intriguing. Although I do think he was trying to make an effort to try and follow up Nuhiu's flick-ons for what that was worth. Whatever the frighteningly large odds are of winning the lottery, you've got considerably more chance, I think, of winning the lottery than guessing where a Natty Nuhiu flick-on will go as a strike partner. It's almost impossible. What did you think? So Forestieri came on. He had a shot. I was going to say a decent shot. Felt like a stretch to say a decent shot. He sort of had an effort down low to the keeper's right, which was very easily handled. He took on another chance where he probably had better options and probably shouldn't have shot. What did you make of him when he came on?
This was I think this is probably some of the best Forestieri we've seen in quite a while, I want to say. Even without those kind of berries of a wonder goal or a decent strike, the fact he just looked determined and up for it, and on the wing, was a huge revelation, I think, for me.
He did look very up for it. That's definitely.
While I was saying that, Rich, I could hear you being very polite and waiting me to finish my point, but I felt an air of pensiveness to your kind of reaction to this. So please tell me about. Please criticize my appraisal of
I agree. I agree. He did look up for it. Well, we've talked before. There's a lot of the fans get excited when Forestieri comes on. That's not nothing, that it helps the team that there is a kind of frisson of excitement in the ground that makes us feel better and feel more dangerous, and presumably for the defending team, it puts you on edge and therefore more likely to make mistakes. So it shouldn't be just sort of, passed over that he has an effect. Every time he comes on the pitch, he has an effect. And whether he's then effective is a different question. But I think this was one of his better recent performances. What the moment that was so frustrating and is unfortunately another big factor in his play. He had a moment where he could have played Da Cruz through clear on goal and selfishly played a pass that meant that Da Cruz had to turn round and play the ball back to Fernando Forestieri. And it's those bits of his play. He's never playing for Wednesday, Forestieri. He's playing for Fernando Forestieri. So taking his shot when there's 3 or 4 better options is very Fernando Forestieri. And that moment, he's got the beating of his man. He was clearly quicker than both those enormous centre-backs. All Forestieri needed to do was play a ball through the middle, and De Cruz has got a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. And being as big as he was, the goalkeeper, I'm guessing not the most mobile chap, I think he probably would have got a goal, or at least been in a very good position to get a goal. And Forestieri plays the ball a long, long way to his left, and it's slow, painfully slow. So what De Cruz needs to do then is turn around and play the ball to Forestieri, who's running on. And those sort of moments are just so aggravating because the easiest thing to do is the thing that helps us score a goal. He's made life more difficult for himself and everybody else to play that selfish pass, but he does it time and time again. He's a good player, so he's not making mistakes when he plays the ball behind someone. He's doing it on purpose.
Wow.
So, yeah, I thought that there was positive things. It's good by and large, but that was the moment where we could have won the game, and he sacrificed our winning moment to try and let himself shine, and that's Forestieri in a nutshell, unfortunately. Oh, sorry. It's a bit heavy, but yeah, there's always those moments, and they do stick with you. So we made the Forestieri change. They made 2 changes. That's when Matt Smith came off and Ferguson came off. And then Cooper got yellow carded quite soon afterwards. I think, was that for hauling down Forestieri?
It was. It was
yeah.
pretty
awful.
Pretty cynical tackle.
Those are one of those ones where it'd be nice to have something worse than a yellow, but not quite a red. Because you don't want to see someone sent off. It would be ridiculous if that's a sending off. But, I mean, this is so stupid, but it's cheating. It's really not, it's not on.
Oh, yeah.
We all want to see goals. And what he did had no purpose other than to stop us having a shot on goal. Yeah, it'd be nice to have like a 5-minute sin bin or something for those sort of challenges. And then a few minutes went by. I don't know when chances happened. I know that they had a couple of chances. There was the one where Bodvarsson was sent through and did his amazing, the worst lob ever.
Well, that was right at the death, wasn't it? That was literally right at the dying embers of the game, was him just being one-on-one and just doing this very, very pale lump over the bar, pretty much.
It was so bad. Just a volley straight out of play. Well, painfully bad stuff.
So I think I guess the other thing to talk about as well, 6-7 minute mark, Murphy comes off, and Alessio Da Cruz comes on to make his Sheffield Wednesday debut at Hillsborough.
And looked very much at home pretty much straight away.
It was quite something just how comfortable and, useful and dangerous he looked. I was wondering if maybe it might be a bit of a Marco Mateus situation. He might look a bit kind of out of sorts, but I don't think it happened.
No. And one of the very first things he did was sort of pick up the ball the corner of their box and play a very nice pass into Forestieri, which he just didn't get under control. But if Forestieri had managed to control that ball, he would have had a very nice one-on-one with the goalkeeper. He looked quick, he looked strong, and he looked confident, which is all things that our front line have really not looked like having any of those things for quite a few weeks now. That's the high point. Really, was for me. This game, the high point was his sort of cameo towards the end, because he looks like a good option to have, and I wasn't sure we were going to see him come on at all. Do you have any other notes?
No, that was it. My kind of notes kind of panned off. I was kind of hoping that maybe there'd be something of note to kind of happen, and maybe I could just see I was interested to see how it was going to play out. It felt like a time to put my phone down and just really focus very hard on the last kind of 10-15 minutes. I mean, the interesting thing was the notion that, let's look at this. We basically had Forestieri, De Cruz, Reach still on the pitch.
Yeah.
It felt like we still had a lot of kind of interchanging wing options. I wondered whether we'd actually even make the third substitution and maybe take Newey off a Winall at the end. I wondered if basically any kind of... I feel like Newey's there for a sense of kind of keeping a bit of structure and kind of holding things at top, even though it maybe didn't work. But I was almost wondering, like, looking at the team and thinking, this is it feels a little bit maddening, this formation. It feels a little bit like we're just trying anything. So in a similar mentality, it's like, when do you know when to stop, really?
Well, I think that... So I was pleased we didn't make that Winall substitution, because that, to me, would have been, you just don't have any idea. You're just putting people on the pitch. Because we've seen it so often that you swap Newey for Rhodes or Winall, and then actually what happens is we just end up defending for our lives, because even though Newey was living off scraps, the scraps that he was able to get a hold of were better than anything we would see from Sam Winall. I think we just would have lost the platform to play in their half, which is what happens all the time when Newey comes off. So I was quite pleased we didn't make that sub. You could have argued for potentially is Hunt for Pelupessy, but whether it would have made us better, I don't know. It just would have been different. Different's not always better.
Well, I guess that's an interesting thing to think about. Maybe that kind of leads us into looking at player ratings.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because when you say Joey Pelupessy, I think of how can I criticise him today? But anyway, let's start the back. I guess, interestingly, near the first half, I've made a lot of notes about the defence, and maybe the rest of it will kind of do on the fly. So maybe that's kind of really a good summary of the game as well, that defensively we were very strong and we were still kind of trying to figure out ideas attacking wise.
Oh, sorry, one other chance worth mentioning, and maybe we'll get to it when we get to Bannon. Bannon missed an absolute sitter today. Murphy, it was a corner that was played back in, and one of their, I think it was probably Woods actually, tried to nod it out of the box, and he nodded it straight to Murphy. And Murphy rolled it into Bannon, who was in that kind of Thierry Henry position, just looking, just the goal and him really were the only things he needed to worry about, even though there was other players in the box. And he hit the side netting with it, and probably our best chance of the game. Anyway, sorry, I just had a flashback of that moment, because that was a great opportunity, and he did so little with it. Right. Anyway, let's rate some players.
Cameron Dawson, just to kind of go back against some further notes about his new contract. I really enjoyed him referred to as a custodian.
Yes.
That makes him seem like he's either a museum archivist or a park keeper. And anyway, I think after this, like an inevitable Trump re-election, here's to 4 more years, Cameron Dawson.
4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years.
But this will hopefully be a lot considerably better than the second term of Donald Trump.
Cameron Dawson's actually got some interesting thoughts on whether Muslim people should be allowed to enter the country.
Well, Dawson also has some issues around building walls as well. So, there's a lot of things that kind of go hand in hand there. He was pretty good today, Dawson. I think I'm going to go for a solid 7. His kicking was so-so, but I wonder how much we just really heavily missed Fletcher to take down those long balls.
Yeah.
I'm curious if we see Wickham in the starting 11 next week. I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. Everything else was fine about his performance, though. He was good. I'm happy he got a clean sheet.
And interestingly, today, the better of the two keepers with the kicking, because Biakowski kicked, I think, 4 or 5 straight out of play. So, yeah, pat on the back for Cam. I think 7 out of 10's good call. Liam Palmer?
I'm not sure how to rate Liam Palmer. I think I'm going to conservatively just go with a 7 today.
Okay.
His defensive work was pretty comfortable. We didn't really see much going forward, but I mean, when was the last time that I'm going to kind of look a bit at this while we kind of chat here.
Okay.
It's been a long time since he's been out of the picture for quite a surprising long amount of time here.
It was a foul, wasn't it? That should have been a red, but somehow was only a yellow. But I'm blanking on who the team was.
The last time he played was at the end of December against Cardiff.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes, because it was what's the Canadian winger called?
Oh, Junior Hoylett.
Yes, Hoylett absolutely murked him, didn't he? And got a yellow for it.
So I could probably see, I'm surprised. I mean, he's kind of come back after a month away, basically, back into the starting 11. And, I think there was some comments about the fact that, basically, seemingly, his injury wasn't kind of as severe as someone like Forestieri's. So Forestieri then had some minutes in the under-23s, and we didn't see any of that for Liam Palmer. So no. I can probably say that for a player who played 90 minutes, who's kind of come back in, he did pretty well, considering he's probably developing, he's probably just washing off a bit of rust as we speak right now.
Yeah, I think 7's probably fair, probably like the high end of what he deserves. I don't think he was particularly stretched defensively, and I don't think he was particularly good going forward. But he looked bright. He looked fit. He was willing. He was full of running. And it's just really nice to have him back. So I think just for the kind of the pleasantness of having what is probably our first choice right back option back in the squad, I think 7's. I'm happy to go along with your 7 and move along to Dominic Iorfa.
Dominic Iorfa, I think it's the man of the match performance from Dominic Iorfa. I'm going to stretch to an 8.5. I think I had him down as an 8, and I think I'm going to upgrade that. First half, he was fine. I think him and Bernard first half were just effectively doing a job, and I think they were, probably a little bit tested by Matt Smith and some of the other, Millwall attacking options, so it was a little bit tough for them. But second half, they absolutely I think both of them just upped their game in the second half with some really huge blocks and great work. And you talked about that. I think within the space of kind of 3 minutes, about 62nd minute, 64-minute mark, I think when I last made my notes, Iorfa just made 2 absolutely huge kind of bits of defending.
Yeah.
And he was just fantastic. So I'm definitely thinking from something that came out of this game, which both of us, Rich and I were both on Love Sport Radio on Friday nights, just in a very despondent kind of look forward to this game. And despite the fact it was a pretty drab game, I really have to give a lot of kudos to this defence, to the rear guard, for Dawson and the back four. They've all done exceptionally well to get a clean sheet in this game. A huge performance from Big Dom.
I think I think the kind of wobble towards the end, because we'd had a mad kind of couple of minutes once we got to the 90th minute, and then also just completely going to sleep to let Bodvarsson. I mean, we laughed at Bodvarsson's effort, but that both the centre backs went to sleep for that chance. I think so. Just those little factors for me make Odebajo my man of the match. So I think I'm going to give Iorfa an 8 and Odebajo maybe slightly higher. But it's a close run thing. It's a really close run thing because, as you say, the whole of the back five did a bang up job today, and it's not their fault that there's an air of disappointment. And it has to be said, Matt Smith is a player that has caused us headaches at several different teams, and the way we handled him, particularly in the second half, is real testament to how good those two are as a centre-back pairing, and in particular, how good Dominic Iorfa is. He's just a joy to watch in that position. There was one moment early on where Smith had kind of got fed up just battering against him for headers, so Smith kind of pulled out of he sort of faked going for the header so that the ball would run in behind, and he was already kind of chasing in behind, not countering in the fact that Dominic Iorfa was quick enough to miss the header, land, and get round Smith to tackle him again. It was just a gorgeous moment of defending, and just little things, really. Those little moments are what makes watching him so pleasant as a Julian Berner.
Julian Berner, I've gone for a 7.5. Very good performance, not quite as good as Iorfa, but he was good. He put himself on the line for a couple of, not covering anything on the line, off the line, but just that really commitment in that moment I talked about where, basically kind of was fouled over and then dived and headed away and then just kind of got up and gone on with it and just kind of pushed things forward a bit, Just it's that little bit extra of just kind of pushing something forward. And we have that with a player like him. And really good to see him back. And especially after, I think he was saying he was pretty shaky midweek. So good to see him back. Glad to see him back to some of his regular standards. So I think he earns a 7.5 from me.
I think as the other thing with midweek is he didn't look shaky when he was with Iorfa. He looked shaky when he was with Tom Lees, and I do think I just don't want to. We need to stop that being the default to go back to being Tom Lees and Berner. What we need to keep is Iorfa and Berner. And, in those situations where somebody else gets injured, it should not be Dominic Iorfa losing his spot at centre-back. It should be those two are the centre-back pairing and other people move around.
Yeah.
That was the big mess up in midweek. Berner's had a testing few games, in particular the Blackburn game, but these two need to play together. They're the clear and obvious first choice together. They make each other better, and that's a great thing because neither of them are as good with Tom Lees by their side, and Tom Lees is not as good as either of them. So outside of injuries and suspension, this needs to be what plays. Starts every game and plays every game until something else happens. Please, can we stop experimenting with Tom Lees? I'm sorry.
But only if you want to see if you can experiment on Tom Lees to make him a better centre-back.
Yeah. Unless we want to try some crazy three at the back thing. That's the only time he should be getting on the pitch, when those two are on the pitch. Moses Odebajo.
I went for, think of it, Moses Odebajo, one of his best games. I've had to kind of redefine this while we've been chatting. I've gone for an 8.
I think that's absolutely fair enough. As I say, we're talking fine margins in a very good defensive performance. I thought his tackle / clearance where he injured his bits and bobs was as good as anything the other two did. He seemed to be very, comfortable going forward and actually just helped us building play time and time again. And just really nice to see. I mean, it'd be great if he can follow this up with other similar performances, because far and away as good as he's looked in a Wednesday shirt playing at left back there. Jacob Murphy.
Oh, maybe one of the better of the wingers, I'd probably say. I probably went for a 7 for him. I thought his deliveries were good. Had a decent stint in the game. Yeah. I'm going to go for a 7.
Fair enough. Okay, here we go. What everybody's been waiting for. Luca's got his fangs drawn, and I'm going to feed him Joey Pelupessy.
You know, Pelupessy had 1 or 2 nice moments today. There was a professional foul.
He's basting the turkey.
First half, it's about the 6-minute mark. He did a good clearance. I think I'm pretty much getting to the point where I think I want to say, rather thematically, I'm just going to really plant this flag in the ground now, Rich.
Yeah.
I think any other centre midfielder would be more effective than Joey Pelupessy.
Oh.
I don't think he was bad today in terms of a rating. I think I'm going to go for a 5.5 out of 10. I'm wondering, genuinely, you know, I feel pretty... I've tried to get my energy up for this podcast. Rich and I were mentioning before we did this, we're both feeling a bit lethargic. I'm wondering about sometimes... I think it can be probably discussed how in life there are certain amounts of things you do that... I drove for 2 hours midweek. I felt very tired afterwards because literally I'd never driven before and suddenly I'd driven for 2 hours. It took a lot of attention out of me. It takes a lot of energy out of me watching Joey Pelupessy in the Sheffield Wednesday midfield. Trying to critically appraise the things that Joey Pelupessy does is draining. It's really draining to try and think, what is he doing? I just genuinely want to say, I want him gone from the club. I don't want to see him anymore. I'm really hoping that one of his other centre midfielders are well and fit and well to come in and replace him next to Bannon. He offers so little.
I wonder, Luke.
We're having a very industrious midfield that sometimes are frustrating, but they have a lot of touches. They have a lot of drive, even though today, midfield-wise and striker-wise, it was a little bit misfiring. It's almost a little bit like we were talking about the other week about how I said previously, you know, if I was a Wednesday manager, I would come with some real kosh. Much like Jos Lukai did previously when he played Ross Wallace in a false 9 away at Millwall one season. Hilariously, I think that's Millwall. But I said we could play a 4-6-0 because I don't trust that Jordan Rhodes is going to do anything up top either on his own or with someone else. And I actually think Pelupessy is the midfield equivalent of Jordan Rhodes.
Oh wow! I wonder, and sorry, Luke, I won't do this often to you, I promise. But I do wonder. I do wonder if what he brings to the team is particularly unfriendly for folks watching at home, because I know it sounds like you sort of, you know, I'm talking about, I don't know, quantum physics or something like that, but a lot of the work he does and a lot of the legwork he does is to block off paths for passes and block spaces. And so by the nature of that work, you never see him doing that because the player has to turn and pick another option. So you never see Pelupessy making the interception because the pass hasn't been played. He's visibly kind of blocked that space for the player on the ball. So in terms of watching the game, not being there and be able to just take in what you choose to on the pitch, I do think possibly, I'm not going to say he's the second coming or anything like that, but I do think possibly Pelupessy, your vision of him is worse by the nature of the fact that you're a remote fan.
Oh, I don't know. I think this is going to be wow. This is the end of
I thought Pelupessy had a much more
beginning of the end of the podcast. There,
I thought Pelupessy had a fairly effective game today, and the midfield too did his job much better than Barry Bannon did his job.
Okay. Yeah.
But we disagree. It's fine. It's fun to disagree. Pelupessy, you give him 5.5. I'm going to give him 6.5. I'm not gone a huge amount better. So I'm not like shouting from the rooftops about how wonderful Joey Pelupessy was today. We should move along because we could spend a lot of time going back and forth on little Joey. Let's move along to wee Baz, little Baz.
Wee Baz. Let's go for 6.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Pieces were just dreadful today. The one near the end when everybody had pushed forward, and everybody was on the kind of, as Bannon looked at the penalty area, everybody's on the right hand side. They were like the furthest player left was on the penalty, was like in line with the penalty spot. Bannon played it in line with the post, the left side post. Everybody had to move over to try and win the header. Then the ball came straight back to him and he hit an even worse pass. Oh, he just wasn't having a good day today. Bannon's a wonderful player. There's always good stuff, but his game is, he succeeds or fails, and the team succeeds and fails on what he does with that sort of 10%-ish of possession where it really matters. The ball through to the player, the set pieces, all those moments. And today he didn't make the most of any of those moments that he had. I don't think. He looks lost without Fletcher to play to as well. I do think that's a loss for him, and hopefully he'll strike up a similar, warm relationship with the con man. Wee Baz and the con man.
Wee Baz and the con man. Yeah. Okay.
Kadeem Harris.
I'm gonna go for 6 as well.
Yeah.
I can't. Couple of good crosses. Yeah, that cross was good. That was a good cross. I'm frustrated for him. I don't know what it is. I don't know how we're going to. I don't know. He seems mentally drained. He doesn't seem very fresh.
Yeah, he's lost a bit of kind of pep or zip or one of those words that ends in a P.
Yes.
Okay, Adam Reach, the second striker.
I don't really know what I can say about Adam Reach. Because that was the funny thing, was like, we talked about that. You said at the beginning, and I know that attacking going forward, it doesn't really work with him as a second striker, or playing in the hole, or whatever you call that position.
Yeah.
But I mean, the weird positive was like, it's quite funny. I thought he did a better job of Joey Pelupessy than Joey Pelupessy.
Okay.
In a more kind of action role and just kind of getting back and running around the pitch, and he was busy in that. There wasn't a great deal of, in a weird way, it's like you don't really want him to do that. We should have other players that should be, This isn't what I've asked for him for.
Yeah, neither of the front two had the discipline to play their role properly today, I don't think, and it hurt the team. Mm-hmm. They were either on top of each other or so far apart that they were barely a partnership. And both of them were guilty of dropping too deep and then not making any attempt to get in, or going out to help a winger and again not making any attempt to get into goal-scoring positions. At one point, Reach had the ball in the middle of the pitch. Harris had made a rare dart forward into the sort of striking position, and Nuyu was on the left wing. And you're just like, in what world are we ending up with the potential for Nuyu to cross the ball to Kadeem Harris? It's ludicrous. This is a system that is not working if that's what ends up happening. I think Bannon put the ball in the end, but it similarly didn't produce a great result because, funnily enough, Kadeem Harris is not great at winning headers against 6'5" centre backs.
Yeah,
he's almost uniquely unsuited to that job. What about his strike partner then for you, Ati?
So did we give a rating for each?
Sorry.
Let's give him a 6. And I mean, I don't know. Today was a difficult. I mean,
He
it's
had
maybe been
yeah.
a little bit difficult for us as, here at Different Gravy, we're both very adamant Adam Reach fans. I mean, I kind of said, this is the interesting thing about the nature of this season is like, we said in the beginning, we weren't so optimistic. We thought it'd be a mid-table. And it's kind of turning out to be a mid-table finish as it kind of stands. Hopefully.
Taking a meandering route there, but it's looking that way.
And I mean, it's always the narrative of how you get there, really. Because I mean, we've so often recently, before Christmas, we were third.
Yeah.
And now it looks like we're never going to get back to anywhere near that kind of high remarks. We're like 7 points off a play or something like this?
Yeah, yes.
After Bristol City won today, so it takes it to around 50 points or around 43, I think it is, something like that.
Going to pull it up.
So, but as part of that kind of prediction, I really thought Adam Reach would have a really good season.
Yeah.
And it's just been monumentally disappointing. We're big Adam Reach fans. I don't know, but there've been other triumphs and other kind of positives. We need to look at those. But it's been annoying just seeing Adam Reach be equally disappointing and not kind of really give us anything to really write home about.
Well, he's provided so many highlights in miserable times. So there's that. We're not getting any of those wonderful goals to celebrate. Just pulled out of nowhere. Though that's a huge part of what he brings. But just what those goals add to the team has been sorely lost as well. It's normally he's been a pretty reliable guy getting to sort of 5 to 10 goals in a season. We'll be lucky if he gets to 5 this season if at his current rate of scoring, and it's a loss. We're not a team that scores lots and lots of goals, so anybody dropping to that extent, we'd even miss it if Bannon doesn't get his one, because that tends to be one in a game where we win 1-0 or draw 1-1. So all the goals that we can get are useful, and we are really missing his at the moment. Just to go back to the league as it stands, so we are on 43 points, and Bristol City in 6th are on 50 points. So we're 7 points off 6th at this point. It's all pretty close. I mean, those Fulham are on 52, Leeds are on 55. So Leeds are as close to Bristol City in 6th as we are, or closer to Bristol City in 6th than we are in 11th. So that's a fun thing to play with.
So anyway, I don't know. I think maybe thematically we can kind of jump ahead with this. We can go back and finish off these player ratings. But I mean, I don't know. But we've had a positive, huge positive. The defense, we stopped the rot. We didn't lose at home again.
Yeah.
We didn't pull out any real horrid clangers in the process. Disappointing thing going forward, we weren't particularly effective. And this felt like 2 points dropped, really. I'll be honest.
It did. Yeah. After the second half, definitely felt like 2 points dropped. Yeah, for me.
So, up to Rich, tell me what percentage at the New You atted today?
There was 0 atties out of atty today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how does that translate to a regular out of 10 score from me?
6? Maybe?
I think a 6 is fair. Yeah.
Feels a touch generous, to be honest. I don't think he did very much today, Atty New You.
It was a very Jordan Rhodes-like performance from Atty New You today.
Yeah, disappointing. I think he's gone from being the quintessential bit part player to now having started several games in a row, and maybe he's looking even more lethargic as a result of that. I mean, you shouldn't, as a professional footballer, need a rest after playing, not huge amounts of football. But the drop off between the first and second half of his performance against Wigan was massive, and today was a whole game of second half against Wigan where he just looks a little bit off it. And when he gets the ball, he's more likely to make a mistake than make anything happen. He did have one nice ball that he played through for Forestieri. That's the chance that the shot that Forestieri took when he had lots of better options, and Atti did a really nice job there, kind of rolled his defender. So maybe there was one Nuyu out of Nuyu, but really grasping at straws to pick any highlights of his performance.
Yeah.
Should we whip through the subs quickly? Forestieri came on first.
Forestieri, I don't know. Yeah, this is an interesting one because I felt like you brought up some very good points about Fernando. But I don't know. I mean, I still think it was a very bright substitute performance.
It was, yeah.
Maybe we could go with a 6.5.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess another thing was, maybe I was a little bit. He had a couple of chances where he kind of, he floated in to get it on his right foot and just kind of rasped one along the floor.
Yeah.
I kind of wondered in those situations whether maybe shooting wasn't the best idea. Maybe. I don't know. But maybe that was one of our. It's still maybe for the record books one of our few attempts on target.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think these two shots were about the only thing that we got on target. Okay, and then what about new boy Da Cruz?
I'm gonna go for a 7 out of 10. I think he was.
I think that's a good call. He was a bright. I think both subs were the bright sparks in the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cruz has the who knows what's around the corner. But I wrote down one of my very few notes. I don't tend to make notes when I'm actually watching the match live because I don't want to be that guy. But one of the very few was that weirdly this game, as everyone knows, Different Gravy is the only podcast that stands on a ruling of a strict basis of all Lord Mayor's show all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we advocate as strongly as possible. This game weirdly was like pre-Lord Mayor's show because we've made these great signings and everybody's got a slightly lighter mood as a result of making the signings, but obviously neither of them could play today. So it was like pre-Lord Mayor's show in that this felt warmer than maybe it should have because it was freezing cold and it was a dreadful game and it was 0-0. But the bright performance from Cruz, having Forestieri back as an option and having Windass and the con man to join us for the next game, it all feels like we're maybe on the beginning of a bit of a wave of positivities. Hopefully that's the lift that everybody needs, and we can pick up some performances and pick up some points in a row, starting with the Dingles next Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice to go and absolutely do them, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. I don't know, how have Barnsley been doing recently?
They're still pretty relegation zoney, I think.
Right. And, I'm sure they'll probably be up for it, so it'll be interesting, but...
Their form over the last 6 games is exactly the same as ours, but in the wrong order. So we are loss, win, loss, draw. They are draw, loss, win, loss. But it's the same amount of points. It's 4 points out of the last 6 games from both teams. But they're well and truly in it. Our Barnsley, they're 7 points from safety at this point.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's I don't even know. Can I be enthusiastic? Can I be positive? Can I be optimistic? I feel let down. I don't want to keep my energy level up for this. The thing that's disappointing is I'm disappointed after today that it just feels a long time to wait for the next game.
It does, yeah.
Anyway, let's see how it goes.
Yeah, but then, as you say, that's a positive in that we get those new players in. We've got a decent amount of training and planning and all the rest of it. Monk likes to plan and watch video and all the rest of it. So having a week to go through all those motions, hopefully we'll see a real positive result from it. Well, there we go. That's a vaguely positive note to end things on, isn't it?
I guess.
We shouldn't do the sigh. Right, I'm going to say cheerio. We're going to go back to that positive, not the side. The positive bit is where it all finished. Cheerio.
Yay. See you later, Rich. Have a good one.